Now, the lawsuits that we mentioned filed by these attorneys general argue that citizenship for people born in the U.S. is automatic, protected under the 14th Amendment. And the president alone cannot change that. Roughly 24 states have now filed suit. You can see coast to coast here, including Connecticut. And joining us is that state's Attorney General, William Tong. Thank you so much for taking the time. You called this new order a, quote, war on American families waged by a president with zero respect for our Constitution. Even if the law is on your side, the Constitution is on your side, what do you see as the consequences of the president, in your words, waging this war?
So he's attacking American families and who we are as a people. So many of us are rooted in this country, tied to this country by right of our birth. Like me, my parents were not citizens when I was born. And I was born an American citizen, the first in my immediate family, because I was born on American soil in Hartford Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. So many millions of Americans, not just a few of us, millions of Americans reflect this beauty of our country, which Ronald Reagan said was one of the greatest strengths of America, birthright citizenship. And this attack on the 14th Amendment, which isn't a statute, it's not a regulation, it's not a law that Congress wrote. It is in the Constitution, and the president cannot, by the stroke of a pen, amend the Constitution or cancel one of its provisions. The only way to change the Constitution is by constitutional amendment and ratification of the states, and he can't do it by himself.
You mentioned your own personal story. How are you feeling personally in this moment?
I feel very tied to the 7,400 babies that are going to be born in Connecticut this year, whose citizenship is now at risk. I worry about what happens to them if they have no status. I mean, there's nothing in this order that tells us what happens to these babies. If they're not Americans at birth, who do they belong to? Are they stateless? And then what about their parents, even if they have a complicated immigration story, right? What will they do about health care for their kids? Will they be worried to go to the hospital? Will they be worried to call the police, to call 911 if something happens in their home? What will they do about their education? What about housing? What about their parents' jobs? Will they sign a lease? Will they continue in their job? Will they continue to run a small business that they've been building, like my parents? There's no way we're doing this interview, Anna, if I didn't have citizenship at my birth. It's because of that fact that my parents knew they could put everything into me and my sisters. And that's why I had the opportunities that I've had and the chance ultimately get a job, become a lawyer, run for office, be attorney general.
How long do you think this legal fight could play out?
We hope it's quick, because the havoc and the chaos that this president is bringing to immigrant families is happening right now, even before it takes effect in 30 days. What we're most concerned about is people are making decisions now. Babies are going to be born now. They're being born now. They're going to be born in 31 days. And people have to make decisions about their lives and how they're going to respond.
Something like 12,000 babies who get that birthright citizenship are born every month, according to the lawsuits and what you've written. Now, we've learned a new memo from the acting deputy attorney general ordering the Department of Justice to help Homeland Security locate people in the U.S. illegally and even, listen to this, even investigate for potential prosecution state and local officials who resist deportations or impede federal authorities. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, my reaction is this is more bluster and intimidation and trying to force us and compel us to do their will. And Connecticut has never quit on people. We're never going to surrender, and I am never going to back down. So they can say whatever they want. Here's the bottom line. The 14th Amendment protects birthright citizenship, period, full stop, by its very.
With us now is Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, who is one of the attorneys general involved in the lawsuits. Attorney General, thank you very much for your time. What is the premise of your lawsuit?
The premise is the Constitution is clear. If you're born in this country, you are a citizen, period. The idea that a president could status as citizens, and we're going to stop it in court.
And so do you think that the president's executive order is, in fact, a flagrant violation of the Constitution? I mean, is the executive able to change the Constitution through an EO?
Jose, those are the words I've used. This is a flagrant violation. It is flatly unconstitutional. And I believe that when a judge looks at this, it's not going to be a close case. The 14th Amendment was adopted to override the Dred Scott decision, a decision that lives in infamy because it said that someone born here because they're black is not a citizen. That was overridden. Everyone who's born here is a citizen. That's the policy of our Constitution, and it's part of who we are as Americans, that we are, out of many, we're one. E pluribus unum is our motto. That's what we're fighting for in this case.
And so, meanwhile, I know that Colorado is preparing, and I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what are those preparations for what the president has called the largest deportation force in American history?
My message to Coloradans and to Americans is that we live under the rule of law, not the rule of whim. A president can't do whatever he or she wants. We have to treat immigrants fairly, and there are processes that need to be followed before someone can and would be deported. Someone applying for amnesty, someone who is a dreamer, has certain status, and the idea of mass indiscriminate roundups is not how we do things in America. And if it happens, it's very likely citizens are going to get deported too. And the amount of harm that's going to happen, the amount of negativity and demonization right now, it's not who we are. I am here as an American because of the spirit of welcoming. My mom and my grandparents survived the Holocaust. They were liberated by U.S. soldiers. They were welcomed to the United States of America by a spirit that we want to support you and your future. And the idea that we're having all this rhetoric out there that's scaring people and threatening these indiscriminate roundups, it's wrong. And we're going to make sure we follow what lawyers call due process of law, that everyone's treated fairly, that the law is followed, and that if people are in a process, they get to see it through and can't be indiscriminately deported.
Attorney General heading up the lawsuit filed in federal district court in Massachusetts over Trump's attempt to end birthright citizenship. New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin. Okay, so here we go. We take it case by case and don't get overwhelmed, but this is a big one. And do you foresee problems here? This seems like one of the most impossible things that Donald Trump has put out there in terms of his plans.
Well, it is, Mika. It's such a flagrant violation of our Constitution and of the norms of this nation.
And yet I would never say never pertaining to Donald Trump. So just not saying it's completely impossible. I guess you can't.
Look, birthright citizenship has been part of the fabric of this nation for centuries. It's been in the Constitution for 157 years. Even I think President Trump knows that this exceeds his authority. And we're going to have the court say that. And I am confident that this order will never come into effect.
Rev?
Attorney General Platkin, you and I have worked on some civil rights cases in New Jersey. Talk about the overtones that this gives to a lot of people that are concerned, because the 14th Amendment really came as a result of the Dred Scott decision, where they were saying that the slaves could not be citizens, even though they were born here, because they're black. So this really goes to the heart of bigotry and bias that we're dealing with, because I don't know if the people we were talking about were not Mexican or brown, whether Trump would be as vehement as he is. Talk about the civil rights overtones here.
That's exactly right, Rev. I mean, the only period in American history where birthright citizenship was not accepted was the Civil War in the wake of the Dred Scott decision. So in the wake of the Civil War, this country came together and said, we don't want to leave citizenship up to the whims of a president, that if you're born on American soil. This has been the rule now in the Constitution for 157 years. And I live in New Jersey. I live in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, the state of Ellis Island, where millions of people have come through and built their lives in our state. We are a state of immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants. And just comparing it to the conversation you just had, you say people who killed a cop, a New Jersey resident, are American patriots. But people born here are deprived of the rights and privileges of American citizenship that date back to whether descendants of slaves would be accepted as Americans in the wake of the Civil War. I mean, this is a legal problem. We're going to win in the courts. But we got to make sure people understand how extreme this is. When we talk about the rule of law, this isn't an abstract concept. It's whether or not a president can write out a 157-year-old provision in the Constitution with a stroke of a pen.
Around the inauguration, Lorenzo Sewell, the musician pastor who gave us predicted inaugural innovation Monday, announced the launch of new coin named after him, which he said would be used to benefit his church. I need you to do me a favor right now. I need you to go by the official Lorenzo Swell coin, Swell said in a video post on social media. A priority of Trump has been helping supporters who legacies and Capitol on January 6, 2021. Trump has took the judge. The group former